Good evening, YouTube community. This is Angelus21241, and tonight we are going to be doing a little something different in this video. I will be telling two stories. I will be telling one from the Holder series. It can be found on creepypastawiki.com or creepypasta.com, and the second story will be one that I have written myself, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. That's kind of why I am telling two stories in one tonight. That way I can make it a pretty good length. Alright, without further ado, let's get started with the first one. This one is The Holder of Darkness. The Holder of Darkness. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask with no hesitation to visit someone who calls himself the Holder of Darkness. The worker will mock you, but you have to stay as calm as possible. Keep asking him until he stops denying and withdraws from his counter to guide you through the corridors. As his behavior begins to change radically, stay on guard, for if you start hearing one single tiny sinister hiss, you should turn around and flee as far as you can, covering your ears because the time was bad. If you do not escape in time, the faint sound will turn into a dreadful growling that will soon merge into a continuous shriek of sheer pain, until madness floods you and leaves you to die in a deafening agony. If the worker remains silent, he will lead you to a closed door with neither handles nor locks. As he pushes it open effortlessly, you will see an ascending staircase. An ascending, winding staircase which can't possibly lead to any upper floor of the establishment. The door will close behind you, and you will not be able to push it back. Past this point, climb and do not turn back, or you will fall into a bottomless pit waiting for living prey to chew upon. Do not count the steps, for knowing how many there are will drive you into insanity. One will then creak, and at that point you should stop. Another door will appear on your left. If it is on your right, then pray for a swift passing. Enter slowly into the room, and a blinding, obscuring darkness should descend upon you. You will be required to walk straight forward, for even straying slightly will lead you to be devoured by the roaming and unknown creatures, observing you with blinded and purulent eyes. You'll know you have arrived when coldness grips you. At that very moment, freeze, or you will die by the hands of the Holder, who is standing right in front of you. In complete darkness, even closing your eyes will not prevent you from seeing his horrid appearance. It will form into your mind as the most outrageous monster ever conceived, and madness will try to creep into your mind as worms over a decayed corpse. His fulminating breath and constant mumbling would be enough to make you cry, but be advised not to utter anything louder than a weeping, for you might wake what must not be awakened. The only question you will be able to whisper without being torn apart will be, "What do they fear?" You will feel movements all around you as shudders animate your opponents. You will hear what nameless and incurable diseases will strike the world if they were to be frightened. The countless terrors that their own will unleash on those with a weaker mind than theirs. Amidst the atrocious enumeration of the endless sores the world will suffer, you might hear the simplest, almost ridiculous, yet implacable and certain truth that they all fear. Do not move again. When your head is about to implode, it will stop. If you are able to move, you will find a door in front of you, which leads you outside of the ward. There in the open, in the glass, is a broken hourglass that will be waiting for you. You are free to pick it up. This is Object 13 of 538. Your knowledge of their fears is up to you to share, but you may not want to use it as a weapon against them. Alright, here is the second reading I'm about to do, and this one I have written myself. earlier this evening, just because I was bored and didn't have anything to do, and it actually turned out to be pretty good. This one I have titled Jeff Returns, and this is based on Jeff the Killer. If you guys do not know who Jeff the Killer is, then go to creepypasta.com, read the original story there, or you can listen to my readings on it in one of my very earlier videos that I posted. It'll clearly tell you who this guy is. Alright, Jeff Returns, written by me. It was just another normal day for John Williams, but later on that evening for him, it would soon become a night filled with terror, blood, and death. John, very tired and weary from a hard day's work, walks up his porch exhaustedly and goes inside his house. His wife is already at home cooking dinner for him as usual. She peers out from the kitchen as he enters. "Hi, honey," she calls. "How was your day?" she asks. John replies, "Extremely exhausting." She passes him his plate as he plops down in front of his TV. He flicks it on and begins cycling through the channels. All of a sudden, a news broadcast cuts in. "We interrupt your programming to bring you this special news report," the news reporter exclaims. "Serial killer Jeff has struck again. 2 victims were found in a local restroom inside Kersley Park earlier this afternoon. Police are still not releasing the identities of the victims. So far, the police have only told us that they found the victims stabbed with multiple stab wounds, and they were severely gutted to death," the announcer exclaims. "Also, a message was written in the victim's blood, and it was very chilling. 'Go to sleep,' is all it said. Police are advising that all residents do not go out after 10 p.m. by themselves, and a neighborhood watch has been put into effect in all surrounding areas." John turns off his TV and his wife begins to panic. "He said Kersley Park, that's only 2 miles away from here. He's right in the city we live in," she cries. "Don't worry, honey," John replies. "Chances are this guy is probably long gone by now. It wouldn't make any sense if this guy would be hanging around in the same city, especially since he knows the cops are already looking for him, as well as in the state." Sarah calms and cuddles up with John. Later on that evening, they go through the house and lock up all the doors and windows, and then retire for the evening. Later on that evening, John awakens to a loud noise coming from downstairs in the living room. He sits up very quickly and then realizes that his wife is not in the bed with him. The damn wife probably got up and knocked something over again, he thinks angrily. He gets up and heads downstairs to the living room. Almost immediately, he feels a cold draft coming from inside the room. John turns and looks over to a window and sees that the wind is blowing and pushing the curtains. He moves over very slowly to the window, draws the curtain back, and sees that the window's been broken. John quickly goes into a panic and feels fear racing through his heart. His heart begins to beat at 1,000 miles an hour. Quickly, John moves over and grabs a fire poker and then races over to his phone to call the cops. But the phone is dead. He throws the phone down in anger and then begins to search the living room. As his eyes adjust to the darkness around him, he turns and sees somebody sitting in his armchair, unstill and unmoving. It's his wife. "Sarah?" he calls, but she doesn't respond or stir. Slowly he moves over to the armchair and then turns it around. He reels back in terror. His wife is sitting in the chair. She's bound, gagged, and dead, and she's been gutted with her entrails hanging out. He steps back. I've got to get the fuck out of here," he says, fear racing through him. Suddenly, he hears a low chuckle coming from behind him. John turns with his fire poker in hand and sees a man standing in the pale dim light. The man's face is horribly disfigured, a smile carved into his face like a jack-o'-lantern, black eyes as dark as night, long greasy black hair down to his shoulder blades. He's wearing a white hoodie stained with the blood of past victims. Your wife was a lot of fun. He chuckles. I made sure to take my time with her while I was gutting her. I had to gag her, unfortunately, because she couldn't stop making those noises. But don't worry, my friend, you're about to join her. John stutters. You murdered my wife, you bastard. I'll fucking kill you. John lunges forward, but John sidesteps and John crashes into a bookshelf. John quickly regains himself and then charges at the psychopath with his fire poker. John swings, but Jeff quickly ducks and then slashes John's ankles. "Ah!" John cries out in pain and then falls to the ground. My poor, poor friend. You thought you could simply put an end to my little fun? I can't be stopped. But don't worry, my friend. You should be happy, because I'm about to put an end to all your suffering and misery that you're currently feeling. Jeff stands over him and then plunges the knife into John. He lets out a cry and blood sputters out of his mouth. Jeff then leans over and then slashes John's throat. Blood pours from the cut from the fresh wound. The last thing John hears the psychopath say in almost an eager and excited tone. Only 3 words. Go to sleep, Jeff growls. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed this story. Sorry if it wasn't a little long, but that was all I could think. Well, you guys can go ahead and leave a like rating down below, and if you think it deserves it, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And hopefully I'll be able to write my own stories like this again. You guys all have yourselves a very wonderful night.